Good afternoon, everybody. If everyone takes their seats, please. I'd like to welcome you this afternoon to a panel on electronics and electrical engineering. I think over the course of the last 2 days, we've heard a lot about electrification and how with the focus on creating digital management through supply chains, green energy, the fintech revolution, electricity becomes more and more important in our economies. And indeed, if you look at the global market for electricity, it's been developing dynamically. I'm told that the market is worth $1.2 trillion. But of course, a lot of that activity, the production, the development of electrical products, that happens in geographies where there is high levels of GDP, a lot of money put into research and development. And that's, I guess, one of the issues we're going to look at today. I'd like to introduce our panel. We have Aziz Voitov, the First Deputy Minister, the Ministry of Investments and Foreign Trade. Mizyod Yunusov, Chairman of the Board at Uzbekistan. Sabah Ahadov, he is Director of Technopark. We have Kim Yui-Talk, Member of the Supervisory Board of Artel Electronics and former Vice President of Samsung Electrics. And Luigi Vioni from Pietro Fiorentino in Italy. So we're going to start, as I said, by looking at how the government here are intending to support the development and modernization of the electrical industries, how they're going to create capacities for new types of production, modern electrical products, how they're going to increase investment, the export potential, of course, which is very important, and to do that, how they're going to support domestic produce manufacturers. That's all detailed in the new development strategy for Uzbekistan, 2022 to 2026, where there are ambitious targets in terms of increasing production and export. So, Deputy Minister, what measures are being taken to achieve these goals? How are you going to create attractive conditions for foreign investors to develop production? And how are you going to integrate those producers into global chains?
Dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, welcome to the first Tashkent International Investment Forum. Today I am pleased to participate in the panel discussion on the topic electronics and electrical engineering outlook. I hope today's event will assist us to reveal the best solutions for its implementation in the economic development. Let me continue my speech in Uzbek language, and our translators will translate for you.
Dear participants, as you know, there is the Industrial 4.0 panel that happened yesterday, and we are developing in the field of electronics and electrotechnics and electrical engineering as well. And in our country, the development industry of the electric engineering field came to the point that now we have more than 1,000 industries and enterprises in this field, and last year $150 million of investment that were attracted, and it was in different funding for the creation of the transformators and different cables. And I can say that Samsung, Pietro Fiorentino, LG, Siemens, these kind of companies are operating in our country, and we are cooperating with them. And we should have to mention that the local companies are also rising nowadays, such as national brands Artel, Idea, Vitek, Proca, Vista, Phaton, Ferry and Tashkent Electro Apparat type of companies, which are huge local brands. And those companies, they are producing their products for the inner market and also for the outer market, and they are preparing their products for the export. And I would like you to pay attention to this thing that electric engineering pays attention for the development of the copper, and the copper industry is important in that field. And in Uzbekistan, the copper mining is developing in our country, and we are doing huge works on that. And currently we are trying to process the copper product itself and constructing the new plants for that. And you probably know that in Tashkent city we are conducting huge works in order to develop it, and we are trying to create a huge special cluster in order to develop this field, and I think it's very important, and it will help to mine this type of the copper, and also process it and create new products from it. And in these conditions, I try to respond to your question now. In our republic, the government pays attention to this field, and they are conducting different works in that field. And they are, if we talk about the benefits that are giving, they are reducing the taxation for the products. And for example, if the products are imported into the countries, they are reducing some taxes, customs entrance of these products, customs, and they are also, government also pays some share for the transportation of those products that is created in Uzbekistan, and that will be sent to the other countries. That's why they make all conditions for the local industries, enterprises to be developing, and they are trying to fund those companies in order to develop this field. And also we have investment projects, and there are special industrial zones created in our republic. For example, in Urgut zone, the free free economic zones there, and currently we are trying to open the industrial zones in our republic and working on this field right now. The above mentioned conditions are really important, and Uzbekistan is covering 35 million people, and in this market there are more than 8 million people working in the market of the industries, and we are trying to open new solutions and new the new plans for it that would help to develop this field. And in the field of energetics, the energetic field, the Republic makes huge works again. And in 2030, we planned to build the solar electric station, which would be of capacity of 12 gigabyte, and currently it will cost $1.2 billion. And we are working also on the wind stations, not only solar but wind stations as well. And we already started the process of bidding, and we would work on the project in Surkhadarya region in that field. And we should have to mention the thing that In those projects, we are constructing the wind and solar panels, and we are given the bidding process, so local and foreign companies can participate in it. And we are trying to reach high. We try to attract our local companies as well into it. In addition to that, Electrotechnic, electrical engineering industries are trying to develop the electromobiles in our country as well. We are trying to pay attention into it. And electromobiles, the accumulators, the batteries, or some spare parts would be also built, developed here. And so there would be special industries that will help to create and provide those spare parts. And that's why we make a collaboration with foreign international companies for this, and we are open for collaboration. And if we say in general, Electrotechnic, electrical engineering is developing in our republic, and this is the most main drivers for us. This is our aim now, to develop it, and we are trying to reach it. We will stop on that point. Our next speaker will talk about that, and we should have to say that we try to reach the high capacity of our plant's work, and we want to increase the export as well. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Rahmat.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. It's very interesting to hear about the synergies between, as you say, copper production, copper processing, electrification, of course the rollout of green energy. I myself work on a lot of solar and wind projects as an energy lawyer. It's very impressive to see the speed at which you are introducing renewable energy, and as you say, that creates a lot of opportunities for domestic producers. I'd like now to turn to Mirza Oyed Yunusov. What factors do you think will influence the development of the electrical sector in Uzbekistan, and in particular, given the comments of the Deputy Minister, to what extent will joint ventures with global manufacturers in the field of electrical engineering play a role?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Skyner. First, let me express my gratitude and special thanks to the Minister of Investments and Foreign Trade for organizing such kind of discussion on a high-level importance topic. In discussing this issue, let me brief about the electrotechnical industry in Uzbekistan first. Can you switch the presentation? In discussion this issue, which is our current interest area, I can say that electrotechnical industry is the key element of manufacturing industries in Uzbekistan. And and with its productivity growth and technological progress, it can produce greater spillover effect on other industries as well. Therefore, it is very important for electrotechnical industry and the companies in this area to realize the transformation and the upgrading of the manufacturing. If you can see this slide, it shows where are we in the value chain of energy sector in Uzbekistan. We are starting from the generation, power generation. Some of our companies, manufacturers, are producing the necessary equipment for the power generation stations. And you can see the power transformers, high voltage cables, submission transformers, distribution transformers. All these equipments are produced by our manufacturers. And we start from the generation and end at the end users. So you can see at this value chain, we are starting from the very beginning to the end with the power meters, gas meters, and even home appliances. So there is another division where some of our companies are manufacturing the equipments and goods for the industrial area, for the business consumers as well. And you can see, my colleague Mr. Voitov just told that more than 900 companies are are working in this area, and 400 of them are affiliated with our association. And here are some figures about the industry. If you can see the numbers in 2018, for example, the export volumes was about $170 million. Now, this year we are forecasting to reach this number up to $700 million. And we strongly believe by 2025 we will reach the export volumes for $1.3 billion. And at this point I have to emphasize the special attention paid not only by the government and by our president as well to the development of our industry, that it has become one of the main sectors and indicated the industry as a driver industry in the economy of Uzbekistan. Mr. Skyner, you are right, and experience show that the high value added manufacturing is developed in the countries with a comfortable geographical location and with the high R&D investments. So today, the content that I'm going to mention often is high value added products as one of the main bases of the industry development strategy. We shall open up an image of electrotechnics industry of Uzbekistan like yesterday, today, and tomorrow. In Uzbekistan, we have achieved some results in this area. Many companies transformed their existing business models to be more high value added or value added manufacturing company. It includes solutions that support speed of delivery. It is very necessary in these times. High quality products, because you can see it at this presentation, we are now transforming our industry from the very beginning, from the standards that we use. We mostly use the GOST standards, that is all CIS countries use. Now we are transferring and pushing our companies to use, to implement more international European standards, such as DIN, IEC, or ISO. Some companies have changed the role of the traditional manufacturing companies. Now they are also becoming researchers, they're becoming designers, service providers, and even retailers. That's why we can reach this number if we look at the companies as a traditional way. So we cannot reach these numbers, but we have to transform, we have to change our minds at the companies so to reach these numbers. In 2018, the number of the companies was very few. Now today we have more than 900, but at that time it was about 100 plus companies were involved in the electrotechnical industry. Thus, the electrotechnics industry of Uzbekistan is not diversifying the export geography, but we are also working on changing its structure and adding more to our export, more value-added products. Answering your question, what factors can affect the development of the electrotechnics industry, I would say, if we want to see the industry as a high value-added manufacturer sector, then I think we should increase step by step our expenses for R&D activities systematically, while we as a government agency and the ministry, we need to keep creating favorable conditions for private enterprises to direct their expenses into R&D and human capital development areas. And the second, the investment in the human capital and the modernization of educational system to meet the needs of the industry. We know that some years ago, educational institutions prepared the specialists without any definite career orientation. Now we are very close working with the educational system, Ministry of Higher Education, to prepare necessary specialists for our industry. And by booking a number the group of specialized graduates in advance, I mean, it is kind of pre-order the members for our industry, engineers, designers, and other specialists that will guarantee an educational institutions. Let the students as well, together we are working with the educational institutions on a dual education system as well. It lets the students project their inventions in our factory laboratories, achieve high results and gain respectful positions in the early stages of the career. The third one, I think, to increase the use of energy source. The economic growth always pulls up the demand for the energy sources. As Mr. Voitov told that if we want to take our own worthy place in the electrotechnical industry, then we have to support the energy sector development by providing them necessary components for the energy sector. We should be the main suppliers for the energy sector. This is the main areas we are going to work for the further development of the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very Thank you very much. I've got a couple of follow-on questions in relation to what you've said. I mean, obviously, working with well-known global manufacturers in joint ventures is in some way going to help speed up this process. So to what extent is that part of the strategy? And in that context, how do you create favorable conditions for such foreign investment in Uzbekistan?
Thank you. Yes, today the economy of Uzbekistan has an attractive image, characterized by the stability, low manufacturing cost, low risk, high potential of the domestic market, not only the domestic market, but the regional market, and the effective system of support from the government and from the state. Based on the research and gained experiences, the following conditions can support the interest in joining ventures for the global manufacturers in our industry. For example, the easy access for the raw materials for the foreign companies. We know all that in electrotechnical industry there is a lot of copper used for the production of electrotechnical goods. So we have a great opportunities to invite foreign companies and give them access with the, to these resources for the copper and other non-metals. The second one is the implementation of all possible cost-saving strategy tools. And then recently, thanks to the Minister of Investments, Uzbekistan have joined to GSP Plus program. It means electrotechnical goods produced in Uzbekistan can easily export it to European markets without paying any import duties. So this all can affect to the decisions of foreign companies to enter to Uzbekistan market. Thank you.
Very much. Well, I'd like now to turn to Savar Akhadov. What are the most promising projects in the electrical field today in Uzbekistan? We've heard a lot about the macro situation. Now let's dive down into the actual projects themselves.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues. Based on your question, let me also briefly explain above mentioned points. It was a lot of topics that Electrotechnical is a driver. Yes, it's surely, because our life depends on this electricity, and what we should do in the future. Also, Deputy Minister and Chairman talked about this issue, that based on world trend and to make more efficiency about the consumption of electricity, we should consider the green technology. So far, the most potential products in the future, we feel and we know that this way is the right way. So we should consider that we should make more efficiency products based on green technology, based on solar, based on wind technologies. If we tell about projects that we are handling in Technopark, which is one of the biggest factory in Central Asia, we also handling this mission. And nowadays, because the commodities or resources that we are consuming to make the products, sooner or later they will come to be less and less. We should considering about efficiency. So less consumption and more efficiency. That's why if we talk about household appliances, we should make a new designing for the inverter systems. We should make the more spend more attention for the ozone-freely refrigerants and friendly components that can be refurbished and use it again. So this is in general, and some of this mission we are handling, as I told. For example, now in Uzbekistan you can see that last 5 to 7 years it is very big construction boom. In that case, to reduce the CO2 emission first, to reduce the consumption of the heating or electrical consumption, one of our projects is production of rockwool mats that is covering all buildings, and that means it's less gas emission for the big to the gas supply or to heating supply. So every time we should consider about when we design the product, when we want to increase the production capacity and sales and increase the market share, every time we should consider about this issue that this is the future and we should think it over how to make more efficiency and more long-term participation in the market. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a very interesting point. I mean, the focus is always on ramping up additional capacity of green energy. I think you're totally right that there isn't enough attention paid to the downstream part, which is improving the efficiency of the appliances, because obviously you then need less energy. I mean, a follow-up question, you know, coming from the UK, the government's had to introduce various sticks and carrots in order to make businesses more efficient. Is that the case here? Do you have legislation, regulations already adopted that are trying to push manufacturers into producing more efficient products for consumers?
Yes, right now we have good enough support, and it's still ongoing processes, support from the government. For example, additionally to the speech to Mr. Mirziot about the global company investment, I want to add, and then I will answer more details to your question. For the foreign companies, yes, the resources availability is also very attractive, but I think the transparent policy from the government and democracy policy is also very important. When the investors comes to our country and when they feel that it's very transparent and it is how to say very fast operation, no any barriers for the bureaucratical procedures, so that means you can operate very fast and your how to say not problems, your attempts will be approaching very fast. So in that case, our government every time considering about this when we talk about economic, macroeconomic policy as well. So based on above mentioned, it is ongoing process, it is non-stop process. When the business activity feel that the government listen a business first, listen offers from the business level and trying to solve their daily problems even. So that means we will have the opportunity and advantages to develop and to extend our participation in the regional markets as well. There are still supporting from the taxation, and still there are the latest support from R&D cost recovery, because when we considering the export market, most of companies, they should invest a huge finance, sometimes up to 10% of the revenue to develop a new product for the right market. Because every market has own regulations. It's based on mentality, it's based on location, climate, etc., etc. So sometimes companies should invest. They have to invest, otherwise they cannot compete in this market. So the latest support which is coming from the government is reimburse the R&D expenses from the taxation. It is also a very big support. And so far, based on the latest situation on the supply chain globally, it is changing sometimes every minute even. So compensation of these unexpected expenditures for the delivery, For the other logistic expenditures, it is also big support for, so, I mean, business activity feel that is there some umbrella, so can cover you some for unexpected expenditures. So they have very strict policy for the export. That means the development of electrotechnical field itself, it will be on the safe position. So that's why we are trying and still developing very fast. Try to do it, as Mr. Chairman said, to $1.3 billion export. It is very challenging, very challenging aim for us, target for us.
Thank you. I'd like now to turn to Kim Yui-tak. How to create attractive conditions for foreign investors to develop electronic products. I think that's a topic that's well worth discussing.
Yeah. As requested today, I would like to talk about how to create attractive conditions for foreign investors for the development of electronic product in Uzbekistan. I have been in the electronic industry for 40 years. In 1982, I started my career in Samsung Electronics and worked there for until the end of 2020. Then I joined Untitled Electronics 1 year ago. In my previous job place, I was also involved in several projects of localization, which is inevitable part of the globalization strategy of the company. Let me start my session with asking whether Uzbekistan is an attractive place for investment. My answer after 1 year experience in Uzbekistan is yes. Of course, it can be better. Would you turn next page? Oh, previous one. Okay. Oh, okay, whatever it is. Okay. I can. Okay, thank you. What can motivate the global players or local investors to come and to invest in this country? There are many factors to be considered in localization: market to sell product, cost competitiveness, availability of local components, skilled human resources, and many others. But I think the most important factors are accessible market and cost competitiveness. Uzbekistan itself is attractive enough market in the region, but it alone is not that much attractive for the global players considering localization. If we look outward, however, we can find a very attractive market enabled by Uzbekistan, the CIS market. Uzbekistan has signed free trade agreement with almost all of CIS countries, which allows Uzbek manufacturers to sell their product to the neighboring countries, almost like to domestic market. The global electrical and electronic market this year is estimated to be $3 trillion. I do not have exact figure of CIS market, but I assume that it will be 3 to 5% of the global market, meaning if my assumption is correct, maybe it can be $100 billion. Isn't it attractive enough? Furthermore, As Mr. Chairman explained, EU GSP Plus, which went into effect last year, has enabled local manufacturers of some product to expand export market to Europe more easily. Now, let me move to cost competitiveness. Apart from the advantage of free trade agreement with CIS countries and EU GSP Plus scheme, production cost in Uzbekistan is very, very competitive. I can assure you that the production cost in Uzbekistan is the most competitive in whole Eurasian region. Also, various governmental support for local manufacturers in export makes Uzbekistan more attractive for foreign investors, such as tax incentives, subsidy for export transportation, support for exhibition and operation in the export market. Electronics is selling 300,000 refrigerators locally produced to Samsung sales companies in CIS market, taking advantage of above-mentioned competitiveness. Anybody looking for supply base to CIS or to European market, they are strongly recommended to consider seriously production in Uzbekistan. There are also areas to be improved as well. Despite attractive supply base or regional hub to the region, such advantage of Uzbekistan is not well known to foreign investors. Government as well as private companies should pay more attention to advertising attractions of Uzbekistan. Insufficient skilled human resources are another area to be improved in the long run. Government is recommended to review educational system and polish to provide sufficient qualified labor forces to the market, especially in IT and engineering area. Private companies are also advised to invest more in R&D and education of employees. Take Electronics, for example. The company organized R&D center in 2016 to introduce innovative design technologies into the production and has brought about substantial result. Now, 100 engineers are working in the R&D center. The company also opened innovation training center in Tashkent last year to systematically provide advanced training in various areas, such as product quality, production and business process, human resources, and many other areas. The last point, what I'd like to mention is local components, which is one of key factors in competitiveness. Even now, variety of local parts can be sourced, but significantly large portion of key components are imported for the production of electronic product in Uzbekistan. It is very important for local manufacturers to procure competitive component locally to enhance competitiveness in the export market. To improve the situation, cross-industrial cooperation and governmental subsidy for the transportation of imported components for export, especially in the period of supply chain crisis, can be considerable as a short-term remedy. For longer term, government polish and support to build up component ecosystem, I think is a very important. Share brief localization history of Korea for your reference. Korean producers of electronic products started their production in the 1960s with simple knockdown component imported mainly from Japan. In 1970s, they made effort to localize relatively simpler components to reduce cost of product until mid-80s. During the period, Korean government provided technical assistance and financial support to the industry. From late 80s, they concentrated on localizing components of high technology ripple effect. Even during this period, support of Korean government was continued. In this century, they achieved technological innovation in many areas of core materials and components so that they might boost export of those materials and components. In short, Korean electronic industry started production with high dependence on imported components, more than 80% of which were from Japan. However, successful localization process of parts and components could reduce the dependence on import components significantly, through which they could be more competitive in the global market. I think that it is one of the key success factors of Korean electronic companies. I'd like to close my session with a brief introduction of Untitled Electronics to you, taking advantage of this opportunity. The company of more than 10,000 employees in 6 different locations is selling more than 4 million products annually and exported various products of more than $100 million to CIS, Middle East, and African market. The company is by far the largest electronic and home appliance manufacturer in Central Asia, attract financing from many international banks, and the first manufacturing company of Fitch rating in Uzbekistan. The company is in operation with high ESG standard, environmental, social, and governance, according to group's strategy of high priority on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have a follow-up question. I was struck by the fact that you emphasized, at the moment at least, dependence on the import of components. And you also emphasized that one of the reasons to produce in Uzbekistan is the accessibility of the market. The fact that you have markets in the CIS you can sell to. To what extent do you think that the current crisis, the imposition of sanctions on Russia, the inevitable changes in supply chains, in transportation, logistics, to what extent will that impact on the development of the industry and production in Uzbekistan? And will that be a short-term impact because it will be relatively easy and quick to produce domestic components and find other markets, or will this have a more longer-term impact?
Okay, first of all, let me talk about this supply chain crisis. It is really difficult to forecast when it will be stabilized. Some expert says that it would last for a longer time. Somebody says, oh, it can be stabilized in several months. But it is quite difficult from my side to forecast. But anyhow, this supply chain crisis caused a lot of trouble to us, who is producing product and selling to export market. So, as I pointed out in my presentation, if there is any support from governmental side for this issue, especially this during the crisis of supply chain crisis, it would help local manufacturers to be more competitive in the export market. Second, these sanctions, it is a very sensitive topic. I don't know if it is proper to mention about this in this forum, but my personal opinion is there are pros and cons. First, cons, it is quite difficult for us to export to their market. Opportunity, if this situation is lasting for a longer time, then Uzbekistan can be one of the best option for global companies to move out for production. Because in this region, there is no other countries who are ready to produce and supply to big market. Last one, you asked this localizational component, it will take longer time. As I explained, the case of Korea, they started production in 1960s. It took almost 40 years to get to this level, right? So it will take time. It will not happen in 1 day or 2 days, but government as well as private companies should pay utmost attention to expand localizational component, which can guarantee competitiveness in the global market.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate the candidness in your answer. Well, we've been talking about, obviously, electricity. I think it's always a mistake to separate up the different elements of the power market. And, of course, an important part of the power market is gas. And you can't look at gas separately from electricity because a lot of electricity is still produced by gas. We actually, as a law firm, were working last year with the World Bank and the Ministry of Energy on the reform of the gas market here. That, of course, has many elements, upstream, midstream, but it's very, very important, of course, to change the behavior of the ultimate customers, and an important part of that is gas metering. So I'd like to turn to Luigi and ask him to tell us a bit about the smart gas metering project he's involved in Uzbekistan and the next steps for implementation.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for offering me the opportunity to give witness of the smart gas meter project that was born for us in August 2019 with the signing of the contract with the company Technopark for the supply of approximately 3.5 million of smart gas meter kits and related assembly and testing line for the nascent Tashkent plant. The challenges from an industrial point of view were many, starting from the preparation of the first production line into a new factory to the challenging timeline of the project in general, and the need to transfer the necessary know-how to a new organization that was being born from scratch. Already in February 2020, just before the pandemic start, we celebrated the first gas meter produced in Technopark plant, ready to be installed and controlled by Udud Gas Taminot. This was the first step of a very large-scale industrial initiative that aimed to achieve a total production capacity of 300,000 gas meters per month, reached despite the difficulty due to the pandemic with the first half of 2020. The transfer of know-how constantly has involved dozens of specialists in Italy and in Uzbekistan who worked side by side, as well remotely, to ensure that the production process fully meets the stringent quality requirements imposed by the project. As part of the international cooperation between Italy and Uzbekistan, we have successfully managed the ease of a financial support for the project in the form of a buyer's credit assisted by the Uzbek sovereign guarantee, insured by SACI, the Italian Export Credit Agency, and financed by the leading Italian Intesa Bank for the benefit of us as exporters. To date, we can say that the great satisfaction that the implementation in your country of the gas smart metering project is widely effective. It can be rated among the most modern and
И на сегодняшний день это может быть газовый счетчик, который будет самым эффективным по всему миру. И это, конечно же, здесь требовалась работа всех участников, всех лиц. И, конечно же, здесь должна быть хорошая, значит, цепочка поставок электротехники. В плане локализации здесь были два, значит, стойки, опоры, которые были поддержаны государством, и здесь создался альянс, и для того, чтобы развивать область интереса. Конечно же, нам было интересно измерять использование газа, и это должно быть, конечно же, транспарентны, то есть должна быть видимой, и, значит, те люди, которые потребляют газ, они должны были именно видеть количество газа, которое они употребляют, и должно быть, конечно же, финансироваться этот проект. Благодаря этому у нас были оптимистические ожидания по и финансовым, и со стороны, значит, окружающей среды, и, конечно же, ожидалось то, что, значит, клиенты, то есть люди, которые потребляют, потребители, они должны будут вовремя платить за газ. И, конечно же, это увеличивает ответственность потребителей и их семей в плане потребления газа. И это снижает потребление газа, и это предоставит государству возможность. Конечно же, возможность в плане, значит, окружающей среды снизит, значит, газового выброса. И второе, это финансовая сторона, благодаря улучшению баланса, и снижает потребление. То есть, если меньше потребления, меньше оплаты. Конечно же, это будет для двух сторон положительная сторона, то есть и как и для потребителя, так и для страны. И конечно же, сегодняшний день без технологий мы бы не смогли бы достигнуть этого, поэтому электроника, она очень важна, которая будет соединяться с интернетом, и, конечно же, эти объекты, они должны быть соединены, друг с другом, и это должна быть соединена с телекоммуникационной инфраструктурой для того, чтобы работать постоянно, чтобы был постоянно, значит, работа, и мы получали правильные данные. И, конечно же, обязательно нам нужно программное обеспечение, которое должно работать в этой сфере, которое нам позволит получать безопасную и правильную информацию. И основная цель компании Terranova — это, значит, иметь достаточную работу, систему, комплексной системы, которая будет полностью в коллаборации работать с технопарком и с Гастаминотом. И технологии потребления — это определяющий фактор, который открывает возможности для распределительного сети, который будет определенный уровень газа распространять, и это будет адаптировать альтернативные пути потребления газа, например, ночью или же зимой и летом будут различные виды потребления, которые будут увеличивать эффективность. И аналитика, и модуляция давления, она будет определять именно потери газа, который будет определять потери газа, которые находятся в различных аспектах, и это будет воздействовать положительно на окружающую среду. Мы знаем, что на сегодняшний день изменение климата играет роль, и мы должны будем правильно, ответственно обращать внимание на потребление газа, и потому что если мы будем правильно потреблять, то он будет управляем правильно. И в Узбекистане газ является как бы лидирующим, то есть это страна лидирующая по газу. И, конечно же, в панораме мира мы видим, что здесь есть вопросы импорта газа, даже если есть современные технологии, и в результате политических моментов и различных моментов мы не можем проводить импорт или экспорт. И также я бы хотел поблагодарить мистера Сарвара Ахадова и также Ишмуратова Бахадыра из Гастаминот. Я хотел бы также поблагодарить государство и правительство Республики Узбекистан за то, что они предоставляли нам возможность работать с ними. У нас есть многочисленный опыт, и на сегодняшний день мы поддерживаем своих клиентов в более чем 100 странах, и у нас есть более 18 лет опыта работы, и мы рады, и мы надеемся, что мы сможем внести вклад в развитие вашей инфраструктуры, и одной из важной области будущего Узбекистана. Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much. You've talked about how obviously consumption, the result of metering is a reduction in consumption. I guess the unspoken part of that is pricing, that a lot of consumers are not really aware of the cost of producing either gas or electricity because the prices have been so heavily subsidized for a long time. I wonder, we've talked about efficiency, and this is a question to all in the panel. To what extent is the increase in pricing, and I know that's a politically charged issue because obviously you can't afford to increase pricing quickly, but to what extent is the number of dollar cents a consumer pays a kilowatt hour or for their gas, to what extent is that going to determine their choices in terms of what appliances and products they buy? Because if the aim is to produce components and manufacture products that are designed to be efficient, is the pricing a critical element of that in terms of developing a domestic market? Maybe Luigi first.
Yeah, for sure. The actual situation is increasing the price of all type of energy. As you said, not only electricity, but also gas contribute to the production of electricity. So for this reason, the efficiency and the monitoring of the network allows to increase the efficiency. So for sure, there will be a high pressure on the reduction of consumption and to also develop new technology for energy.
Of the other panelists like to comment on that issue of pricing and efficiency? No?
Mr. Ahadov, he could add some comments because he's the one who is involved in this project with the gas metering system and has a monitoring system of the whole consumption. Please, Mr. Ahadov.
So let me additionally opinion as a manufacturer based on above mentioned a speech from Mr. Luigi also. I told this issue that we should consider about the efficiency. And of course, when the end user consumpting, it's not depends on the cost. We should save. So when we consumpting, when we earn more salary or more profit, our expenditures should be based on our income. So if we are talking about the gas itself, about the natural gas, so this project of the implementing the smart gas metering system is first stabilize the pressure for all of end users. So that means the monitoring system can assure that every house or every end user can consume the gas which is needed for his life and production itself. So this is the first point. Because when the pressure is unstable, when you don't know the real consumption in some area, so you will lose some pressure. That means you will lose this gas, okay, to the air or to somewhere. And this is first point. Second point, okay, we make the more efficiency system and we, how to say, we store some quantity of gas, okay? And this stored gas, Uzbekistan, for Uzbekistan economy, that means it is the advantage for the new projects or even to the export, okay? And third thing, that this system can, this is a good regulator to see the each region, each street or each houses, and can, for Hudud Gaz Teminat is an implementing company, they can make very good forecast to the consumption of the gas when the temperature is fluctuating or something, another factors is affecting for this system. So I mean the consumption of the gas which is reducing by the end users, it's not depends 100% on the cost. Yes, cost, it can be affected, but not 100%. So that's my answer.
Thank you for the explanation. Well, we have 15 minutes left, so I'd like to open up to the floor for questions for the panelists. I don't know if we have a microphone or if we need one, because I guess everyone is audible. Yes, please.
So our government, and I would like you to hear us, we have nano development, we have experience and we can develop.
Производство батарей. В современном время у нас такое, что мы должны быстро действовать, потому что конкуренция очень сильная. Куда бы мы ни стучались, нам говорят, месяц, два, три, наши разработки могут быть, например, через год уже не конкурентоспособные. На сегодняшний день наши разработки есть, узбекские, с нашими продуктами, что мы можем конкурировать и стать первыми в Средней Азии по производству литий-ионных, железофосфатных батарей с использованием наноматериалов, графен. Вот наша компания, простите, мы почти вторые в мире, которые смогли получить графен 99,9% чистоты по очень конкурентоспособной цене. Но мы не можем развить свое производство. нам говорят: о, у вас хорошо, мы вам грант дадим, ну это у вас год идет, 6 месяцев идет. Ну и получается, мы не сможем в такой системе конкурировать. И еще у меня такая просьба: если развивать электромобили, электростанции, зарядные станции, это очень масштабная вещь. Мы кому не обращаемся из инвесторов, они просят какой-то субсидии от государства для развития зарядной станции. Прошу вас обратить внимание.
Спасибо, да, мы обязательно, как я уже в начале своего слова сказал, что мы сейчас, на данный момент, очень заинтересованы в этом проекте, в проекте.
We are really interested in this project and in the battery and the electrical station and the battery station for the electrical cars. And we understand that this market is growing and increasing. And as a government, we are really interested to support to support manufacturers and support some conditions for it. So after this meeting, we can discuss it in personal. So to listen to your concerns and to answer to your questions. So we will not taking a lot of time. But I am as a representative of minister, and I am the head of association. So we are ready to listen to your requests and to support your project. Thank you.
The project by the production of the lithium battery, this is very interesting theme for us, as you mentioned by yourself. If we look into the pricing of the electromobiles price, then the half of the electromobiles price goes to its battery, and we are interested in this project. And in addition to that, we are searching for the companies who can develop and produce those technologies in Uzbekistan. As Asbatiri said, we are ready to collaborate together, and in addition to that, we can also connect you with the huge producers who are interested in such technologies. Yes, in collaboration with those companies, then we can develop your technology. And for the second question, regarding the ecosystem of the development of the battery stations for the electromobiles, today we discussed the project for the development of the electromobile sphere in Uzbekistan regarding the charging stations, and there are the several points there regarding the development of the charging infrastructure of the electromobiles, that means charging stations, and there are very good benefits and this state support for the development of this sphere, and we are ready to discuss with you all those points and ready to directly work with Ministry of Investment. After the panel session, we would negotiate those points in detail with you later. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? The audience. We still have 15 minutes, so feel free to pose one. No? Well, in which case, I'd like to invite the Deputy Minister to provide a summary, his impressions of what was discussed today.
Dear participants, I want to thank you all for participating in this session because this theme is very interesting. That's why the theme's name is Electronics and Electrotechnics. Electronic engineering is developing, and it makes our green economy future, and it will point out our future development within this sphere. And I want to thank all the speakers who participated today. And I wish you all success in this investment forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would also like to
thank the panelists for very interesting presentations and discussion, to thank you all for participating, and wish you all a good weekend. Thank you very much.